Kelly, thank you. And Dara, thanks for being here today.
Happy to be here.
I do want to get to the product stuff and certainly those safety measures, but I want to pick up on something you said last time you were on our air. Less than 2 months ago, you said that you had to do a better job of telling Uber's story. It doesn't feel like you've gotten any closer in terms of your share price, down 30% since that time. Do you need to change your story, take a hard look at the business?
Well, I think any time that the market is sending a message as to whether or not they like the story from an investment standpoint, you've got to listen. Now, that said, short-term market sentiment can go up and down, while what really counts is long-term building and building a great product, and also making sure that that product over a period of time is profitable as well. So we have listened to our investors. We think we're on a great path. Q2 was messy from an accounting standpoint, but all of our metrics were moving in the right direction in Q2, and I think if we have a solid Q3, Q4, we'll be on our way.
I understand you're looking at the long term. Are you getting any indication, and now you guys have been public for several months, that markets are listening to your story or they're starting to get it? What do you look for to judge whether or not that's happening?
I think you've got to let a couple of quarters go. Now, I will say, I do think that markets are definitely sending a signal of being more risk averse. And there is an appropriate amount to invest to grow. But I think markets definitely in this kind of an environment that is getting more risky, more uncertain, presidential tweets going out, we are getting the message. And I think we've got to hear as a company that markets want growth, but they don't want growth at any cost. They want disciplined growth. And we think at Uber we can deliver that.
Right. So in terms of disciplined growth, what are you telling investors? Are you going to be taking a hard look at some of your businesses? Uber has done that in the past. They've got out of China, out of Russia, when it became really competitive and losing a lot of money. Are you looking at all your businesses all the time to see where you might be able to cut, and what's the threshold?
We look at our businesses all the time. Listen, I came from a company, Expedia, I ran for 13 years, that was profitable essentially every single year in operation. We take a hard, critical look at what we're doing. We think that the rides business and the environment around the rides business globally is constructive. We think that we can grow, but we do think that we can take costs out of the business, both on the rides and on the eat side, and build for the long term, but build responsibly for the long term.
Now, just briefly, walk me through what happens if Uber still isn't profitable in 3 years. What changes at that point?
I'd be very disappointed if Uber isn't profitable in 3 years, right? The investors are expecting profitability going forward. I think our rides business is the most mature business, so it is going to enter an area of profitability sooner than our other businesses. With Eats, we're looking to get into a number 1 or number 2 position in every market that we compete with. And I think our investors expect us to deliver, and we expect to deliver.
I understand you'd be disappointed, but walk me through what actually happens. Do you actually start to look at consolidating? Today was all about showcasing how many different things Uber does.
Everything that we're doing is about making sure that doesn't happen, and we are profitable in 3 to 4 year time frame.
Okay, Kelly has a question for you back in.
Sure.
Dierdre, thanks, and Dara, really appreciate you being here. Today, there's a lot of focus on a lot of millennials actually leaving cities and moving out to the suburbs and gentrifying them, making them cool again, whatever you want to call it. But one of the main arguments I hear for Uber and transportation as a service is based on this idea that we don't need car ownership. Are you actually seeing trends go the other way right now, where that's a coastal thing that might be true in 20 major cities, but is never going to be true for the rest of the country?
I think at this point, it's too soon to tell. Remember, too, that the majority of our transactions on a global basis are outside of the U.S. Uber is a truly global enterprise. So I wouldn't take short-term trends that we're seeing in the U.S. and declare them as trends that are happening globally as well. In general, too, we find our services originate in the center of cities, but they actually grow far from the center. So in New York, for example, the fastest growing segment of our business isn't in Manhattan, but it's in the boroughs as well. So we think that our business will grow outside of the city center, even if millennials start moving outside of city centers as well.
Are you going to have to raise prices in order to be a profitable company?
I don't think that we have to raise prices in order to be a profitable company. I think the company can scale. We can improve margins. We're looking at costs in every single part of the business. But I do think we have pricing power. And we have seen in certain markets, because of New York City regulations, for example, we had to increase prices significantly to consumers. It's not something that we wanted to do, but we had to do because of the new regulations. And our New York business continues to grow.
And finally, would it have been better for Uber to go public much sooner than it did?
Oh, I don't want to question would it have been better. I can tell you that once I took over, we went to reform the culture, we went to fix governance, and we were sprinting to get to the public markets. And I think that when I look back, the execution there was pretty darn good.
Dara, certainly you've done a lot in terms of the culture, but there's some discussion about reputation still, particularly when it comes to safety measures. You had that Post report yesterday, a bombshell of a report suggesting that Uber investigators that you employ act in the interest of the company instead of the actual riders. What's the good of safety measures if that's what you're doing, ultimately?
I completely disagree with that report. I think that report is absolutely off base. We have a special unit there, over 100 people trained. We've consulted with law enforcement. We've consulted with advocates. The goal of that group is to help the victim and the survivor first. That's what we are all about.
Is there a three-strike system?
There's no official three-strike system at this point. Now, these issues are complicated, right? So if someone makes a claim, we actually do need to make sure that the claim is verified. If a survivor says that something has happened, we look at it as quickly as possible. And if the survivor wants to notify law enforcement, we will help them do so constructively.
Would it be different, though, if your drivers were actual employees? You'd be responsible for their actions. So does that constrain you in some way, especially when it comes to law enforcement?
I think when it comes to safety, we take every single step that we can. We don't hide behind.
How do you convince your riders of that, though? Because it's case after case. There's lawsuits as well. So what are you doing right now that is not working?
When you have over 16 million, 17 million rides every single day, the 1 in a million happens 16 to 17 times a day. I think with all the investments that we're making, check your ride right now, track your loved one, pin dispatch, check the license, etc., the 911 integration. I believe that we are the absolute leader in safety. Can we get better? Absolutely. But we've got over 100 engineers working on this every single day. We take it totally seriously.
Now, a few months ago, you shared your thoughts on one of Uber's biggest shareholders, Bosa-san,
yes,
and SoftBank. You said that he doesn't throw good money after bad. You were happy to have him as an investor. Two of his biggest bets, though, Uber and WeWork, have taken significant write-downs on their valuations. What is it that public markets aren't seeing that maybe a visionary, as you imply that he was, Bosa-san, is seeing? And what kind of conversations did you have with him ahead of Uber's IPO?
Well, they were very supportive of us ahead of the IPO. They agreed that it was time for the company to go public. The stock hasn't reacted the way that we'd like it to react, but we're focused on building a great business. And whenever I talk about Bosa, he's focused on helping us build a great business.
Do you still talk to him often? Now that
yeah.
it's a public company and the value has been...
Absolutely.
Are you feeling pressure from him now that sort of some of his biggest investments are adding pressure?
The greatest pressure that I feel is from myself, not letting our team down and making sure that we build the best service out there.
Now, a lot of folks can't help but make the parallel or comparison between Uber and WeWork, both very disruptive companies, burning money. Both of its founders and CEOs were ousted. You came in for Travis Kalanick now more than 2 years ago. What did you do? What was one of the immediate things that you did to turn around Uber at the time?
Well, we immediately went out and made sure that we reformulated the culture of the company. And by the way, we took some of the old, because it wasn't all bad, but some of the aggressive culture that made Uber what it was weaponized. And we made sure that we changed that so that we had a company that wasn't growth at all costs, but it was responsible growth going forward. And we did take a lead on governance. We got rid of high vote stock. It's one share, one vote. We brought a chairman of the board, Ron Sugar, who's got deep experience. So I think we got it right on culture. We got it right on governance. Now we have to execute.
Do you have any advice for WeWork's board as they search for a new CEO? You've been through this protracted process.
Right now I'm focused on our company. I really do wish them the best. I think that if you're a WeWork employee, they must be going through a tough time. I think there's a real business there, and I think if they focus on building a business, they'll get there.
Dara, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, back to you.
And Dierdre, thank you as well. Hey, Dara, before we go, I have one more question just as a user. You guys are trying to be the all-in-one transportation platform, correct? That's part of today's big announcements. What can I use Google Maps?
We want to be the operating system for your daily life.
Yeah, but I can get on Google Maps and see when the next bus is coming and compare my options that way. How are you going to move people out of something that they might already be getting the information they need from?
Yeah, I think, listen, Google is a great service. And the way that I think of Google and Google Maps is it's all about information and search. Uber is about information, search, real-time pricing, and the transaction all the way. So just like Google has great product search, Amazon has built out their product search all the way to delivery, which we think is a terrific experience. And we think about transportation the same way. You've got search, you've got information, but you can transact all in one go, get loyalty points, use your Uber Cash, etc. We think all of that together is superior.
All right. I want you to know I've got 5 stars right now, but it's mostly because of my mother-in-law. She's a great passenger.
Well, thank you for using us. You're a great user then.
Thank you guys both very much. Dara Khosrowshahi, the CEO of Uber, with our own Dierdre Bosa today.